Hi everyone, and welcome to Inside Archaeology, the YouTube channel giving you a sneak peek inside history's mysteries. I'm your host Rachel, and today we are talking about the best archaeological discoveries made during 2024. Yes, that's correct. Archaeologists are still making groundbreaking discoveries every day. However, your newsfeed algorithm might have decided not to show them to you. So, for your benefit, I've collected them here. I'll tell you what it is, its significance, and why it's cool or included on this list. I am a trained archaeologist, so you can trust that everything listed today is real, not clickbait or pseudoscience. All my sources are listed in the video description. Because I can't really pick a favorite, the list will be in chronological order, starting with the discovery that goes the farthest back in time. If this sounds like it's right up your trench, don't forget to support this channel by subscribing, sharing, liking, or commenting to show the algorithm that you're interested in learning more about real archaeology. I'd also recommend you check out my archaeology news playlist, which features monthly videos on all things archaeology and already features many of the discoveries that we're speaking about today. All revenue made from super thanks, Ko-fi donations, or Redbubble purchases, links in the description, go back into building and improving this channel. So thank you in advance for even taking the time to watch this video for longer than a few minutes. It really helps me out. All right, everyone, grab your trowels. Let's dig in. Our first major discovery of 2024 brings us back 1.5 million years to the ancient shores of Lake Turkana in Kenya, where a set of preserved footprints has revealed the coexistence of two ancient hominin species, Homo erectus and Paranthropus boisei, in the same habitat. Although they were both bipedal and walked upright, the two species differed greatly in their anatomy, indicating different behavioral and movement patterns. A first footprint was initially found in July 2021 alongside tracks of ancient animals. A more detailed excavation followed in 2022, which uncovered a 12-print trackway and 3 isolated footprints, as well as 94 non-human tracks from ancient birds and hoofed animals. The footprints were preserved in the mud near the lake's edge, ensuring their survival under layers of fine sediment. They are significant because they fall into the category of trace fossils, which are not part of an organism but offer evidence of behavior. A combination of stratigraphy and other dating methods was used to establish that the footprints were 1.5 million years old and had been made within hours of each other. The identity of the species that left the footprints was determined using comparative analysis and sophisticated 3D imaging. The Paranthropus boisei was responsible for the trackway of 12 prints, which featured a slightly spread big toe and a deeper 4-foot strike. The 3 isolated footprints, on the other hand, were associated with Homo erectus because they showed a heel-to-toe motion resembling that of modern humans. While it's not possible to confirm if the two hominin groups interacted directly, it is clear that they at least shared the same habitat for a brief moment in time. The discovery was published in the journal Science in November 2024 and provides a new understanding of early human evolution as the first tangible proof of direct coexistence between two hominin species, casting doubt on the notion that hominin species avoided one another. It also gives us a unique window into how these species interacted and competed in their environment. Next, we leap forward in time by about 1,452,500 years. In January 2024, an article was published detailing the results of work on bone fragments from a cave located below a medieval hilltop castle in the central German town of Ranus. The cave was originally excavated in the 1930s, before World War II interrupted the work. At that time, technology could not identify the bones that were found. Researchers returned and re-excavated it from 2016 to 2022, uncovering more bones and artifacts. DNA sequencing on the newly found and previously unearthed bones identified 13 Homo sapiens remains. DNA sequencing on the newly found and previously unearthed bones identified 13 Homo sapiens individuals. Radiocarbon dating was then used and determined that the bones were 47,500 years old. pushing back the dates for Homo sapiens' presence in the region by about 7,500 years. Further research showed that the region was colder than now, resembling a chilly steppe tundra setting akin to today's Siberia or Scandinavia. The presence of Homo sapiens here at this time illustrates how our species, despite our roots in warmer Africa, adapted relatively quickly to frigid conditions. Based on the DNA and archaeological evidence, it was concluded that small mobile bands of hunter gatherers used the cave sporadically as they roamed a landscape teeming with ice age mammals, and that at other times it was occupied by cave hyenas and cave bears. Bones and stone artifacts from the cave showed that these people hunted large mammals, including reindeer, horses, bison, and woolly rhinos. This discovery also appears to resolve a debate over who made a specific set of European stone artifacts, attributed to what is called the Lincomian Renisian Germezowichian, or LRJ for short, culture, which include leaf-shaped stone blades useful as spear tips for hunting. These blade points have been found in Poland, Czechia, Germany, Belgium, and the British Isles, and have been thought by many to have been made by Neanderthals. Their presence at the Ranis cave, but no evidence of Neanderthals, instead indicates they are made by Homo sapiens. Based on this discovery, it is now thought that these artifacts most likely represent an early presence of Homo sapiens all over this northern region. As a result of this work, not only are these human remains now among the earliest directly dated Upper Paleolithic in Eurasia, but it's also shown that early Homo sapiens were present in Central and Northwestern Europe long before the extinction of late Neanderthals in Southwestern Europe. This strengthens the idea that a patchwork of distinct human populations and techno-complexes were present in Europe during this transitional period. Third on our list comes from the famous site of Catalhoyuk in Turkey. Catalhoyuk is a very large Neolithic and Chalcolithic proto-city settlement located in southern Anatolia. It was occupied from approximately 7500 BCE to 5600 BCE, and it flourished around 7000 BCE. Artifacts and structures uncovered at the site over the years suggest the residents of Catalhoyuk were pioneers of early farming, having cultivated wheat and barley, as well as herding sheep and goats. It was also one of the world's first places of urbanization, accommodating over 8,000 people in its heyday. In March 2024, the excavators announced that they had discovered a largely destroyed oven structure in the area called Space 66, which is characterized by mud brick houses with interconnected roofs accessed from above. Around the oven were the remains of wheat, barley, and pea seeds. But the highlight find was a small and round, spongy organic residue with the mark of a finger pressed at its center. Microscopic imaging determined that the spongy residue was fermented dough with air bubbles trapped in it, along with traces of starch grains. It was found prepared next to the oven, but not baked or cooked. We don't know why it was left in this state, but when found, it was covered with a thin clay that allowed the organic remains to be preserved. It has been dated to 6600 BCE, which has led the research team to claim that it is now the earliest known evidence of bread, predating other examples that come from Egypt by roughly 5,000 years. Our next discovery made some very big headlines. It comes, of course, where else? From Egypt, where it has been announced that we have discovered evidence of a long-lost ancient branch of the River Nile, that 31 pyramids are likely to have been built along. The idea that ancient Egyptians must have used a waterway to transport materials such as stone blocks needed to build pyramids to their sites is not new. However, until now, the location, shape, size, and proximity of this ancient aquatic highway was unknown. To find evidence of the river hidden under desert and farmland, a cross-continental group of researchers used radar satellite imagery, historical maps, geophysical surveys, and sediment coring to map the river branch, which they believe was buried by a major drought and sandstorms thousands of years ago. The river branch, which has been named the Ahrimat branch, and whose path has been reconstructed in the image you see here, was roughly 64 kilometers long and between 200 to 700 meters wide. For context, the average width of the Nile is around 2,800 meters wide, or 2.8 kilometers. The scientists were able to show that the branch bordered 31 pyramids, including those at Giza, Dashur, and Saqqara between 4,700 and 3,700 years ago. This discovery also helps explain the high density of pyramids between the sites of Giza and Lisht in what is now an inhospitable area of the desert. The enormity of this branch and its proximity to the pyramid complexes, in addition to the fact that the pyramid's causeways terminate at its riverbank, all imply that this branch was active and operational during the construction phase of these pyramids. This waterway would have connected important locations in ancient Egypt, including cities and towns, and therefore would have played an important role in the cultural landscape of the region. Revealing this extinct Nile branch can provide a more refined idea of where ancient settlements were possibly located in relation to it. This increased understanding of the landscape of the Nile floodplain and its environmental history will allow archaeologists to be better equipped to prioritize locations for fieldwork investigation and consequently raise awareness of these sites for conservation purposes and modern development planning. Next is one of my personal favorite discoveries from this year. It brings us to the island of Crete, most famously known as the homeland of the Minoans and the myth of the Minotaur and the labyrinth. In June 2024, the Greek Ministry of Culture announced that during excavations in advance of the construction of a new airport in Castelli, a circular monumental structure was found at the highest point of Papura Hill. It is roughly 48 meters in diameter and consists of 8 superimposed stone rings. In the center, the rings form a circular building, with the interior of which is divided into 4 quadrants. This building is then surrounded by a second main zone where radial walls intersect vertically, forming smaller spaces that connect with each other through narrow openings. On the southwest and northwest sides are 2 possible entrances. It looks very labyrinthine to me. The quality and type of artifacts found here, as well as the presence of a large amount of animal bones, indicate that it wasn't used as a permanent residence, and instead is thought to have been a site where periodic rituals took place involving the consumption of food, wine, and perhaps offerings. This is the first monument of its type that has been identified and excavated in Crete. Its size, architectural structure, and meticulous construction would have required considerable work, specialized experience, and a strong central administration to project manage its construction. Archaeologists are confident that it is some type of community building, a landmark for the wider area. The fact that the structure is monumental and prominent probably indicates the importance of the location and also the range of the population it would serve. The main period of use seems to have been between 2000 and 1700 BCE. No updates on the project have been issued since it was first found, but I'm hoping we'll hear more about it in 2025. Could this be the place that inspired the myth of the Minotaur? What do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. Next, we have another food-focused discovery. Around 20 years ago, researchers discovered 3 sets of mummified human remains in the Bronze Age burial site of Zhaohe Cemetery in northwestern China. They had a strange white substance smeared around their necks, which turned out to be chunks of preserved cheese. Dating back 3,600 years, it was the oldest cheese ever found. In 2024, researchers have now extracted and examined the cheese's DNA and determined that the curds are a kefir cheese, which is a fermented yogurt-like dairy product. You can find it in basically any grocery store nowadays. The curds contained multiple bacterial and fungal species that are found in modern kefir grains. Additionally, by sequencing bacterial genes, the researchers were able to track how probiotic bacteria evolved over the past 3,600 years in China. One of the bacterial grains in the mummified cheese is closely related to others from Tibet. This suggests that people in northwest China may have interacted with Tibetans in the Bronze Age, conducting cross-regional exchanges enabled by nomadic groups that were traveling across Eurasia. These groups likely spread microbes through the trade of dairy products and their storage containers. This study is unprecedented as it allowed researchers to observe a bacterium's evolution over 3,000 years and is a new way of tracking what human cultures were doing long before or in the absence of written accounts. For our 7th discovery, archaeologists in Egypt announced that they had found a 6th century BCE astronomical observatory in the ancient city of Kafr el-Sheikh. Made from mud brick, it is the largest and oldest observatory of its kind in the region, spanning nearly 10,000 square feet. The entrance hall faces east towards the sunrise. The building also contains a large slanted sundial made from over 5-meter long limestone blocks. Its L-shaped plan, adorned with columns, resembles those of Egyptian temples, implying that the building was not strictly scientific, but also used for religious and ceremonial purposes. A treasure trove of religious artifacts found at the site supports this theory, including statues, pottery, offering tables, jewelry, measuring tools, and various other items. We already knew that ancient Egyptians studied the movement of the stars and the sun, which affected important religious and agricultural events. This new discovery is shedding further valuable insight into these practices. Now we move to the site of Herculaneum, where new technology is helping us decipher the collection of papyrus scrolls which were carbonized when Avila was engulfed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. They are the only surviving library from antiquity that exists in its entirety. However, reading the scrolls is extremely difficult and risks destroying them. Several projects are attempting to read them using non-invasive techniques. Among these scrolls is a book by the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus of Gadara about the history of Greek philosophy. It's called Arrangement of the Philosophers. It was written in the 1st century BCE, and while various editions of it have been published, large sections of the text remained unreadable. However, in May 2024, a team announced that they had used hyperspectral imaging to illuminate the scroll fragments with broadband infrared light, which revealed letters that are invisible to the naked eye, giving scholars crucial clues as to the missing words, kind of like completing a crossword or a game of hangman. What made this discovery particularly exciting was that the newly accessible portion included a story on the location of Plato's tomb and his death around 348 BCE. It suggested the burial place was in a garden reserved for Plato in a private area in the Platonic Academy near the sacred shrine to the Muses. It also revealed that Plato was sold as a slave either in 404 BCE or in 399 BCE. Until now, it had been believed that the great philosopher had been sold into slavery in 387 BCE. The text also speaks of Plato's last night, revealing that he was running a high fever and was bothered by the music being played for him, saying that it had a scant sense of rhythm. He died shortly thereafter. While this is an exciting revelation, we should keep in mind that it is not the only story we have about Plato's death, and it was written 200 years after he died. According to a different author of another history of Greek philosophy, Plato died either at a wedding feast or because of lice, which I personally don't think is possible. So, how likely is it that this new story is true? The answer is until we have more info, such as another source that corroborates this one, we don't really know. The death of ancient philosophers was meant to reflect their lives and teachings. If not, posterity was quite happy to invent an appropriate deathbed scene. Therefore, this newly discovered story about how Plato, even in his feverish condition, remained a discerning judge of all things musical, a true sign of a servant of the Muses, probably tells us more about how the Academy wished to remember its founder than how he actually died. The Platonic Academy was destroyed by the Roman dictator Sulla in 86 BCE and was rediscovered in the 20th century in the modern Academia Platonos neighborhood of Athens. I've not seen any further word if this new revelation has led to excavations looking for Plato's burial at this site, but I'll keep you posted if there's a further update. I'm excited to see what new discoveries will be coming from the papyri in 2025. Our penultimate discovery for 2024 comes from Peru, where a 1,300-year-old throne room painted with murals depicting a female Moche ruler has been found at the site of Panamarca, dating to the 7th century CE. At this time, the Moche were thriving and are known for building elaborate buildings and tombs, as well as for constructing intricate works of art such as ceramics that depict human faces. Panamarca is the southernmost monumental center of the Moche culture, a society that made their homes in the coastal valleys of northern Peru between 350 and 850 CE. Constructed atop a granite hill in the lower Napina Valley, Panamarca consists of an imposing stepped adobe platform, 2 lower adobe platforms, a large adobe walled plaza, and numerous other structures including a formative period masonry building. The site is best known for its colorful wall paintings, which depict priests and warriors in procession, battles between supernatural beings, an unusual two faced man, and scenes of ceremonial activities related to human captives. Although other female rulers are known from pre Incan Peru, a throne room for a queen has never been seen before at Panamarca, nor anywhere else in ancient Peru. The adobe throne was found within what has been named the Hall of the Moche Imaginary. It is surrounded by walls and pillars depicting four different scenes of a woman, in some instances receiving visitors in procession, and in another, seated on a throne. She is associated with the crescent moon, the sea and its creatures, and with the arts of spinning and weaving. Other mural paintings uncovered include a rare scene of an entire workshop of women spinning and weaving, as well as a procession of men carrying textiles and the woman's crown complete with her braids. It could be debated whether the woman is human or mythical, or a priestess, a goddess, or a queen, but the physical evidence of the throne, including the erosion to its back support and the recovery of greenstone beads, fine threads, and even human hair, make it clear it was occupied by a real person, and the evidence all points to that person being a woman. Due to their fragility, the mural paintings are not currently accessible to tourism. At the end of each field season, the excavations are covered to ensure their long-term conservation. At the same time, the research team create digital renderings of everything that's been found, which can be found on multiple platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and the website Panamarca Digital, which was launched in 2023. Links to this can be found in the description of this video. Our last, but certainly not least, discovery on the list for this year comes from the famous site of Chichen Itza in Yucatan, Mexico. This ancient city was one of the largest and most influential Maya settlements during the late and terminal classic periods that span from 600 to 1000 CE. It remains one of the most intensively studied archaeological sites in Mesoamerica. In 1967, a repurposed underground cistern called a chultun, containing the remains of more than 100 subadults, was found near Chichen Itza's sacred cenote. Chultuns, like cenotes, are associated with water storage as well as ritual activity. Subterranean features like this have long been associated with water, rain, and child sacrifice, and they are widely viewed as access points to the Maya underworld. 16th century Spanish colonial accounts and early 20th century investigations popularized the notion that young women and girls were primarily sacrificed at Chichen Itza. Because most sacrificed individuals at classic Maya sites are juveniles, their precise sex cannot be determined using conventional osteological methods. The Spanish sources record that such children were obtained locally by kidnapping, purchase, and gift exchange. Until now, and despite more than a century of research, much about child sacrifice and the ceremonial use of subterranean features as ritual mass graves remains unknown. To remedy this, as well as better understand the origin and biological relationships of the sacrificed children to each other and to present day inhabitants of the region, researchers used a combined bioarchaeological and genomics approach to investigate the 64 of the 106 subadults found in the Chultun and compared them to 68 present day Maya inhabitants of a nearby town, as well as to other available ancient and contemporary genetic data from the region. They were only able to examine 64 of the individuals, as the rest were not well preserved enough for analysis. The results found that all the analyzed subadults were male. Genetic analysis also showed the presence of related individuals, including 2 sets of identical twins and 9 other close relative pairs. Think cousins and brothers. Overall, 25% of the children had a close relative within the assemblage, suggesting that the sacrificed children may have been specifically selected for their close biological kinship. Stable isotope analysis found that the closely related children in each set seemed to have consumed a similar diet and died at a similar age, suggesting that they had been sacrificed during the same ritual event as a pair or twin sacrifice. So, what does this all mean? Well, twins are especially auspicious in Mayan mythology, and twin sacrifice is a central theme in the sacred Maya text known as the Popol Vuh. In this book, a set of twins descend into the underworld and are sacrificed by the gods following their defeat in a ball game. The head of one twin is then hung in a tree where it impregnates a maiden who gives birth to a second set of twins who are known as the hero twins. They then go on to avenge their father and uncle by undergoing repeated cycles of sacrifice and resurrection to outwit the gods of the underworld. The hero twins and their adventures are amply represented in classic Maya art, and given that the subterranean structures are viewed as entrances to the underworld, the researchers here propose that the twin and relative sacrifices within the Chultun at Chichen Itza may have been part of rituals involving the hero twins. The comparison of the subadults and the Chultun to other ancient and present day populations in the Maya region found evidence of long term genetic continuity, which also suggests that the sacrificed children were obtained from nearby ancient Maya communities. This summary I've given is really only just scratching the surface of this really fascinating piece of research. I actually had a chance to interview the paper's lead author, Rodrigo Barquera, and archaeogeneticist Christina Warrener about this project in the June 2024 edition of Archaeology News. So check out that video if you want to learn more, and you really, really should. All right, time to pack up our tools, folks. That's everything for today. What new information did you learn? Are there any discoveries that you think I should have included? Which one was your favorite? Don't forget to comment, share, like the video, or subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks, a Ko-fi donation, or have a look at my Redbubble shop and get some archaeology merch designed by me. Taking a few seconds to support me in any way you can helps to grow the channel and promotes quality heritage content that is well sourced, researched, and presented by someone who is an expert in this subject. Thanks so much for watching, stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.